Have you ever wondered why some people seem to build wealth effortlessly, while others work just as hard, but barely stay afloat? What if I told you that Elon Musk, now the world's richest person, drove a $30,000 car, even after his first company sold for millions? Or that Warren Buffett still lives in the same modest house he purchased for $31,500 back in 1958? Here's a truth that might surprise you. The difference between building wealth and staying broke often has less to do with how much money you make and far more to do with how you spend it. While most people focus entirely on increasing their income, millionaires understand that protecting their money is equally crucial to building wealth. In Millionaires Never Spend Money on These 7 Things, I'm going to reveal the spending traps that keep most Americans financially stuck. The same traps that self-made millionaires deliberately avoid. After studying the habits of over 10,000 millionaires for my research, the patterns became undeniably clear. Wealthy people simply don't waste money on certain expenses that most of us consider normal. By watching this video to the end, you'll discover why buying certain essential items brand new is actually destroying your wealth, the everyday spending habits that millionaires consider foolish, that you probably do weekly, how wealthy people approach housing decisions differently than the middle class, the simple spending rule that can instantly boost your wealth building capacity by 20%. I'll also share practical alternatives for each wealth-destroying habit. Ways you can live well while building wealth like the truly rich do. These aren't extreme frugality tips. They're strategic spending decisions that protect your financial future. Stay until the end, because the 7th wealth killer is something 80% of Americans regularly spend money on that virtually no millionaire would touch. And avoiding it alone could add hundreds of thousands to your net worth over time. If you're ready to start spending like a millionaire to become one yourself, hit that subscribe button now and comment wealth mindset below. Your financial future might depend on the spending habits you start changing today after watching this video. 1. Brand new cars. Let me share something that might surprise you about how millionaires approach transportation. Despite what movies and TV shows portray, most wealthy people do not drive brand new luxury vehicles off the showroom floor. They understand a fundamental truth about cars that most Americans miss completely. A new vehicle is one of the fastest depreciating assets you can purchase. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses 20 to 30% of its value instantly. Think about that. A $50,000 vehicle becomes worth $35,000 in literally minutes. This isn't a small financial mistake. It's a massive wealth destroyer that millionaires deliberately avoid. I remember meeting with a client named Michael, who earned over $300,000 annually, yet couldn't understand why he wasn't building wealth. When we analyzed his finances, I discovered he had a pattern of buying new luxury cars every 3 years. Each time, he was losing roughly $20,000 to depreciation, money that could have been growing in investments instead. Over 20 years, this single habit had cost him well over $700,000 in potential wealth. Contrast this with billionaire Warren Buffett, who famously drove a 2006 Cadillac for years until his daughter convinced him to upgrade to another modestly priced vehicle. Or look at Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, often seen driving an Acura TSX valued around $30,000 despite being worth billions. These aren't isolated examples. They represent the norm among the truly wealthy. What do millionaires do instead? They typically buy high-quality pre-owned vehicles that are 2 to 3 years old, after the steepest depreciation has already occurred. They maintain these cars meticulously and drive them for many years. This approach allows them to enjoy reliable transportation while preserving capital for actual wealth-building assets. I'm not suggesting you should drive a broken-down vehicle or avoid nice cars altogether. The key insight is timing and value. By purchasing a slightly used luxury vehicle instead of a new one, you can often get 90% of the quality and reliability for 70% of the price. A strategy that quietly builds wealth over time without sacrificing comfort or safety. 2. Luxury brands for status. The second thing millionaires avoid spending money on might shock you. Luxury brand items purchased solely for status. Now let's be clear. Wealthy people do sometimes buy high-quality items from premium brands, but their motivation is fundamentally different from what drives most luxury purchases. I once worked with a client who appeared wealthy: designer clothes, expensive watches, luxury accessories, but was secretly drowning in debt. When I asked why she spent so much on these items, her answer was revealing. I need people to know I'm successful. This mindset, buying things to appear wealthy rather than to build actual wealth, is precisely what millionaires avoid. Consider the habits of some of the world's wealthiest individuals. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck, jeans, and New Balance sneakers almost every day. Mark Zuckerberg is known for his simple gray t-shirts. Warren Buffett wears off-the-rack suits, despite being able to afford custom wardrobes from the world's finest tailors. These choices aren't about deprivation, they're about prioritization. This pattern appears across cultures. In Japan, many wealthy individuals practice what's called hidden wealth, deliberately avoiding flashy displays that might draw attention to their financial status. The Jewish community has a centuries-old tradition of modest living regardless of financial means, focusing on intrinsic value rather than external validation. True millionaires understand that expensive items that don't appreciate in value or generate income are consumption, not investment. They recognize the psychological trap of status-seeking purchases, the momentary high followed by the need for even more expensive items to maintain the same feeling of exclusivity. Does this mean you should never buy quality items you enjoy? Absolutely not. The key distinction is intention. Millionaires might purchase an expensive item because of its exceptional durability and functionality, or because it brings genuine joy, not to impress others. When they do buy luxury items, they typically save for them rather than financing them, and they consider the purchase carefully rather than buying impulsively. 3. Credit card debt. The third thing millionaires never spend money on might be the most important: credit card interest. While this might seem obvious, the statistics are shocking. The average American household carries approximately $6,270 in credit card debt, often at interest rates exceeding 20%. This isn't just a small financial leak, it's a gaping wound in your financial future. I worked with David, a successful doctor earning over $250,000 annually, who couldn't understand why he wasn't accumulating wealth. When we examined his finances, we discovered he was carrying $45,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards, paying nearly $9,000 annually in interest alone. Despite his impressive income, he was essentially working 1 month each year just to pay credit card companies for past purchases. Virtually no millionaire carries revolving credit card debt. They understand a fundamental principle. Using high-interest debt to fund lifestyle expenses is one of the most destructive financial habits possible. When you pay 20% interest on a purchase, you're guaranteeing yourself a negative 20% return on that money, something no rational investor would ever accept. This wealth-destroying habit has deep psychological roots. Credit cards create an artificial separation between the pleasure of purchasing and the pain of paying, making it easier to overspend. They transform wants into seemingly affordable monthly payments, obscuring the true cost of our choices. Wealthy people approach credit cards completely differently. They often use credit cards extensively, but for convenience, security, rewards, and cash flow management, not as high-interest loans. They pay their balances in full each month, effectively using the credit card company's money interest-free, while often earning valuable rewards. I'm not suggesting you cut up all your credit cards. In fact, strategic credit card usage can be beneficial. The key difference is maintaining the financial discipline to never carry a balance. This requires building adequate emergency savings and creating spending boundaries that prevent you from purchasing what you cannot afford to pay off immediately. The Jewish financial tradition offers wisdom here through its concept of spending with consciousness, being fully aware of what purchases actually cost when interest is factored in. This mindfulness creates a natural barrier against impulsive spending that leads to credit card debt. 4. Oversized homes. The fourth wealth-destroying expense that millionaires avoid is purchasing more house than they actually need. This might be the most counterintuitive insight on our list because we've been culturally programmed to believe that wealthy people live in massive mansions. While some certainly do, many deliberately choose more modest housing for powerful financial reasons. Consider the choices of some notably wealthy individuals. Warren Buffett, with a net worth exceeding $100 billion, still lives in the same relatively modest house in Omaha that he purchased in 1958. Founder of IKEA, Ingvar Kamprad, lived in a modest home and drove an old Volvo despite being worth billions. These aren't isolated examples, but reflect a pattern among the genuinely wealthy who understand the true cost of housing. An oversized home creates multiple drains on your wealth. Beyond the larger mortgage, you face higher property taxes, insurance premiums, utility bills, maintenance costs, and furnishing expenses. Each additional square foot represents not just the purchase price, but ongoing costs that continue for as long as you own the property. Even more significantly, the capital tied up in an oversized home could be deployed into income-producing assets instead. I remember working with Jennifer and Robert, a couple earning a combined $220,000 annually, who were house poor despite their impressive income. They had purchased a 4,500 square foot home in an upscale neighborhood with a $750,000 mortgage, property taxes exceeding $15,000 annually, and utility bills averaging $800 monthly. After analyzing their finances, we discovered they were spending nearly 45% of their after-tax income on housing costs alone, leaving little for investments that would actually build wealth. The wealthy approach housing differently. They often follow what I call the right-sizing principle, purchasing homes that comfortably meet their needs without excessive space. They understand that a home is primarily a place to live rather than an investment, and they're conscious of how housing costs impact their ability to acquire actual income-producing assets. This doesn't mean you should live in a tiny apartment if you can afford more. The key insight is intentionality about space. Do you truly need those extra bedrooms that sit empty most of the year? Is the prestige of a certain zip code worth hundreds of thousands in opportunity cost? These are the questions millionaires ask themselves before making housing decisions. 5. Latest tech gadgets. The fifth thing millionaires avoid spending money on is constantly upgrading to the latest technology and gadgets. While this might sound surprising in our tech-obsessed culture, wealthy people typically have a completely different relationship with electronic devices than the average consumer. Every time Apple releases a new iPhone, millions of Americans rush to replace perfectly functional devices simply to have the latest model. The same pattern repeats with laptops, tablets, gaming systems, and other electronics. Each upgrade might seem reasonable in isolation, but collectively they represent thousands of dollars spent on rapidly depreciating assets rather than appreciating investments. I recall working with a tech industry professional who couldn't understand why his finances were constantly strained despite his $150,000 salary. When we analyzed his spending, we discovered he was spending over $10,000 annually on electronic upgrades across various devices. More importantly, these purchases weren't enhancing his productivity or income. They were purely consumption-driven by marketing and social pressure. Contrast this with the habits of technological innovators themselves. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and many Silicon Valley millionaires are known for using older phone models and keeping technology until it no longer serves its purpose. They understand that the marginal improvement between technology generations rarely justifies the cost for most users. The truly wealthy approach technology as tools rather than status symbols. They ask critical questions before upgrading. Will this new device meaningfully improve my productivity or quality of life? Has my current device reached the end of its useful life? Is this purchase aligned with my financial goals and values? These questions naturally lead to more intentional technology purchasing patterns. This principle appears across cultures. In Japan, there's a concept called mottainai, a sense that waste is deeply wrong and that objects should be used until their full value has been exhausted. Similarly, many wealthy European families practice quiet luxury, investing in fewer, better things, rather than constantly acquiring new ones. I'm not suggesting you should use outdated technology that hampers your productivity or happiness. The key distinction is mindfulness about the true value of upgrades. By extending the useful life of your devices by even 1 year beyond the norm, you can redirect thousands of dollars toward wealth-building assets over time. 6. Expensive daily habits. The sixth thing millionaires avoid spending money on is expensive daily habits that create significant wealth leaks over time. While each individual purchase might seem small and insignificant, these recurring expenses compound dramatically, often without providing commensurate value. The classic example is the daily premium coffee purchase. While the $5 latte has become a financial cliché, the math remains powerful. That daily habit translates to roughly $1,800 annually, money that could be growing in investments instead. Over 30 years, at a modest 8% return, those coffee purchases represent nearly $300,000 in lost wealth potential. But this principle extends far beyond coffee. Daily restaurant lunches, regular food delivery, subscription services you rarely use, premium cable packages, impulse convenience store purchases. Each creates a steady wealth drain that can severely impact your financial trajectory. I worked with Michael, a marketing executive, earning $180,000 annually, who couldn't understand why he wasn't accumulating significant wealth. When we tracked his spending for 30 days, we discovered he was spending over $35 daily on breakfast and lunch near his office, nearly $9,000 annually on workday meals alone. By preparing most meals at home and being more intentional about dining out, he redirected over $6,000 annually into investments without feeling deprived. Does this mean wealthy people never enjoy premium coffee or restaurant meals? Absolutely not. The difference is mindfulness and intentionality. Millionaires make conscious decisions about which conveniences truly enhance their lives and which are mindless habits. They might thoroughly enjoy a premium restaurant experience while avoiding daily convenience food that delivers little genuine satisfaction. This pattern appears across cultures with long traditions of wealth building. Many Jewish families practice regular but intentional spending on meaningful experiences while avoiding habitual consumption. In Japanese culture, there's a focus on finding beauty and satisfaction in simplicity rather than constant consumption. The key insight isn't extreme frugality, but rather conscious consumption. Ask yourself, which of my daily spending habits truly enhance my life, and which have simply become automatic? By redirecting funds from low-value recurring purchases toward investments, you can dramatically change your financial trajectory without sacrificing genuine quality of life. 7. lottery tickets and gambling. The seventh and final thing millionaires never spend money on might be the most revealing: lottery tickets and gambling. While Americans spend over $80 billion annually on lottery tickets alone, you'll rarely find wealthy individuals in line to purchase them. This isn't because they don't need the money, it's because they fundamentally understand probability and expected returns. The odds of winning a major lottery jackpot, like Powerball, are approximately 1 in 292 million. To put this in perspective, you're about 1,000 times more likely to be struck by lightning. Yet millions of Americans, particularly those with lower incomes, regularly spend substantial sums on what amounts to a mathematically guaranteed loss over time. I once worked with a client who complained he couldn't find $100 monthly to invest, yet was spending $25 weekly on lottery tickets, $1,300 annually, with an expected return of -50%. When we invested that same amount in a simple index fund instead, it grew to over $37,000 in just 15 years, demonstrating the profound opportunity cost of gambling. This principle extends beyond lotteries to casino gambling, sports betting, and other forms of wagering. While occasional recreational gambling might be harmless entertainment with a defined budget, habitual gambling represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth is actually built. Millionaires recognize that sustainable wealth comes from activities with positive expected returns, not negative ones. What's particularly troubling about gambling is its psychological impact. It promotes magical thinking about money, the idea that financial problems can be solved through luck rather than discipline and strategy. This mentality is directly opposed to the methodical, probability-based thinking that actually creates wealth. Instead of gambling, millionaires create their own positive expected return opportunities through education, business ventures, and strategic investments. They understand that while these paths might not offer the immediate excitement of a potential jackpot, they provide something far more valuable: reliable wealth accumulation over time. Many cultural traditions reflect this wisdom. The Jewish concept of hishtadlut emphasizes making reasonable efforts in the natural world rather than relying on miracles. Similarly, many Asian cultures emphasize patient capital accumulation rather than seeking sudden windfalls. If you currently spend money on lottery tickets or gambling, consider redirecting those funds into what I call a freedom fund. Investments that grow over time and eventually generate passive income. This simple shift represents the fundamental difference between hoping to be wealthy and actually becoming wealthy. Let me share a powerful insight that ties everything we've discussed together. Building wealth isn't about making dramatic sacrifices or living like you're poor. It's about making intelligent decisions about where your money goes, just like millionaires do. Think about the 7 wealth-destroying expenses we've covered today. Each represents a choice, a decision point where most people reflexively spend, while the wealthy thoughtfully save and invest. The beautiful truth is that avoiding these common financial traps doesn't require a massive income or special connections. It simply requires awareness and intention. I believe anyone watching this video can transform their financial future by adopting even a few of these millionaire spending habits. Imagine redirecting the money you currently spend on depreciating cars, status purchases, credit card interest, oversized housing, unnecessary tech upgrades, expensive daily habits, and gambling into wealth-building investments instead. Over time, these seemingly small decisions compound into life-changing financial outcomes. This isn't just theory. I've watched hundreds of ordinary people with average incomes build extraordinary wealth through these exact principles. The math and psychology of wealth building work regardless of your current financial situation, as long as you're willing to make smarter choices consistently. Here's what I want you to do right now. Choose just one of these 7 wealth-destroying expenses to address in your own life. Don't try to change everything at once. Pick the area where you suspect you're losing the most money and commit to redirecting those resources toward building wealth instead. Even this single change, maintained over time, can dramatically alter your financial trajectory. If this message has resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others discover these wealth-building principles. Share this video with someone you care about who might benefit from these insights. I'd love to know which of these 7 wealth-destroying expenses surprised you most, or which one you're planning to address first. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your insight might inspire someone else on their financial journey. Finally, if you're committed to building real wealth rather than just appearing wealthy, subscribe to this channel. Every week, I share practical strategies that have helped thousands of ordinary people achieve extraordinary financial results. True wealth isn't about flashy displays or impressing others. It's about creating freedom, security, and opportunity for yourself and those you love. By spending like a millionaire today, you take the first step toward becoming one tomorrow. Thank you for investing your time in this video. I'll see you in the next one.